with Zoom talking on mute. Thank you. And hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I'm very excited to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is personal and professional branding. I will let you know this is a workshop. So when I think of workshop, I think of interactive, I think of engaging. So I'm going to ask you questions and there will be work. Because I can't see if you actually do the work, there's no penalty, but hopefully some of you will participate and help to drive the discussion. There is absolutely no pressure to answer any questions or do any of the work if you just want to listen. If I notice that there's awkward silence, then I will fill it in and keep moving. But hopefully we can get people to come off mute, possibly come on camera, maybe a little radical, and participate in the discussion. So I'm going to get started. And as I present, I will introduce myself so don't feel like just jumping right into the topic. So I'm gonna share my screen. Also, when I'm sharing the screen, the way it's set up, I won't be able to see the chat because I'm gonna go into presenter mode. So if you write something in the chat, if you ask a question and I don't answer it, please don't think I'm ignoring you. There'll be moments when I will kind of come off of the share screen so that we can talk, and I'll use that opportunity to check the chat at that time. So today, we're again gonna be talking about professional branding. And as a workshop, we're gonna do some work in this actual session. So I'm going to start out with introductions. I'm going to go through what exactly a brand is. I'm going to talk about why having a brand is important, the role of social media and technology in branding, brands and your authentic self, as well as creating your own brand. So the creating your own brand part is where I really will need you all participation because there's some questions you're going to think through. There's a document you're going to be able to take home and keep with you. And hopefully we can have a really lively discussion. So just to give you a little background about myself, again, my name is Dr. Huderson. I'm an academic, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an advocate, and I'm a researcher. Those are very bold and strong titles, and I did that intentionally. One, I mean, it's who I am. I'm a bold and strong person. And then two, these are the hats that I wear. So I'm an adjunct professor at local HBCU here in Washington, DC, where I'm in the DC area. And that makes me an academic. So I teach anatomy and physiology, lecture and lab. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm coming to you today under my entrepreneur hat of Milton Strategies, which is a consulting company that was founded a few years ago. And it's allowed me to really explore some of my passions outside of STEM research. I'm an advocate. I'm a STEM policy advocate. I do a lot of policy related work, especially around STEM education. So as a director of engineering education and outreach at ASME, I am responsible for leading a team that covers K through 12 programmatic development, outreach, and scholarships for engineering students, as well as engineering education from a workforce development standpoint. And so in that work, I wear the hat of being this STEM policy expert and advocate. And I'm a researcher. My PhD is in biomedical research. And while I don't do bench research now, some may call me a traitor and I'm fine with that, I am officially trained as a cancer biologist. So when I step into spaces, I'm formally trained as a cancer biologist. I still have ties to my cancer biology training and professional societies. And I still consider myself to be a scientist, even though I'm not at the bench. So when we talk about branding, you want to talk about who you are, right? Usually during this workshop at this time, I allow people to give me 1 to 2 sentences about who they are. I realize that it's about 20 of us, 22 technically, but that's including me. If there's anyone who is open to kind of giving a few 1 to 2 sentences about who they are, like your name, where you're from, if you are in school, what you're studying, I would love for you to do that. If no one is comfortable with that, I totally understand and we will move forward. So I'll just take a pause right here. Is there anyone who wants to introduce themselves?
I can. I'll come on camera. So hi, my name is Trinell Mosley. I need to get used to my actual title, which is Dr. Mosley. I am a recently graduated / defended student at Emory University. I just got my PhD in genetics and molecular biology. And so for a while, but I guess officially now I consider myself a human geneticist and a science policy and diversity advocate.
Congratulations. I went to undergrad in Atlanta at Spelman College, so I'm very familiar with Emory.
My mentor went to Spelman. Well, she's not my PI, but like my life mentor.
I say, wait, I hope she's a good person. But okay, yeah. Okay. You picked her. So that means she's good. Okay. Anybody else want to introduce themselves? That was great, excellent introduction.
I can go. I will also come off. There we go. Hi, I am Barbara Del Castillo. I am originally from San Francisco, but I'm actually pretty close to our congrats, Dr. Mosley. I'm at the University of Georgia in Athens, and I'm getting my PhD in genetics. This is hopefully my last year. And I'm also getting a Master's of International Policy because I want to do work in global health.
Nice. We'll take maybe one more introduction if anyone else is interested in jumping in. Thank you both for volunteering. Okay, I'm not gonna pull my teacher side. Oh, okay, somebody came with camera. Okay.
Hey, yeah, I was gonna say I can go. My name's Rachel Hockey. I am going to receive my PhD from University of North Carolina in August, and I'm a neuroscientist, science communicator, and advocate.
Awesome. So you are earning your PhD. You're not gonna receive it. They're not giving it to you. You earn that. So
yes.
Yes, we are they don't give those out at all. And I love the introductions that all of you gave. You use verbs and action words to describe yourself. And that's really what branding is all about, right? Putting a name to the things that you're already doing. A lot of times we are scared to do that. As scientists, sometimes we are taught not to do that. As certain identities, whether they be gender identities, ethnicity related, we're taught that it's boasting and it's inappropriate to name yourself certain things. So play humble and quiet. I am not here for that. As one of my lines just said, we are not doing humble this year. And so I love the fact that you guys were describing yourselves and you weren't afraid to say that. I know, Trinell, it will be weird referring to yourself as doctor. And you choose the settings in which you do that, but understand that that is a large accomplishment. As we know, 1 to 2% of the population has a PhD, let alone in science. And so it's a big deal. So branding, again, is about who you are, right? It's telling your story. And so if we look at, of course, my mouse wants to fight me. If we look at what technically a brand is, it's the way a company, organization, or individual is perceived by those who experience it. And that experience part is very important. So more than simply just being a name or a term or a design, it's the recognizable feeling a product or business invokes. And so I love using this definition because it talks about more than just the logical or the tangible pieces. It talks about how you feel. How did someone make me feel when I was around them? When they're not there, what do I remember about them? And that usually ties into a logic piece in terms of they may be a doctor or they may be studying a certain area of research. I noticed 2 of the young ladies mentioned genetics. One of my cousins is the founder of a podcast that focuses on genetics. It's called In Those Genes. And so I know way too much about genetics than I want to. But so, it's about what you feel and what you remember from that person. There are different types of brands, right? You have commercial, you have personal, and professional. Commercial is that organization, and it makes an organization exactly what it is. So if I were to put up a Starbucks sign or a Coca-Cola sign, without the words, you would know exactly who I'm talking about and what they are because of that brand. The personal perspective gives you everything influencing the identity of the individual personally. So usually I'll show slides of me. I love to travel. I have a dog who may make an appearance because she's small and she's spoiled. I love family and I love fashion, right? So those things are tied into just my personal brand. And so I'm gonna expose myself and show some of my social media when we get to that part, and you'll pick up on some of those things. And then professional branding is everything influencing the identity of the business professional in their career and workplace. The millennial that I am, I think that the professional and personal branding tie in very closely about who you are. And I'm a walking example of that. Everyone does not do that. You can separate the two, there's no pressure. But because my passion, my purpose, and my position align for me, there's a lot of overlap. A lot of my volunteer work relates to STEM outreach and advocacy. My professional work relates to that. In my volunteer work, when I'm talking about STEM advocacy, I'm talking about what does a scientist look like? And you can, if you're really into fashion, you can be high fashion and be a scientist, right? So, and I told you that was an interest of mine. So there's a lot of overlap for me, but there's no pressure for that to be the case for everyone. And if you want to have distinct lanes, you can do that. So when you're thinking about developing a brand, it's everything that makes you exactly the professional that you are. Everyone has a brand, whether they want to or not, and you defined your brand. If you don't take an active role in defining your brand, then others will do it for you. When they introduce you, when they speak your name in rooms that you're not in, when they make recommendations that may involve you, they are they are adding to what your brand is. And so if you want to take control of that, you begin to use the words and the descriptors that speak to who you are, why you are, and what you are. This mouse will not, there we go. So when I talk about branding, I also would be remiss if I didn't talk about some of the scientific importance of branding. There have been several studies that if you Google what a scientist looks like, you pull up a white male in a lab coat. Now, I did this Google test and it's changed a little bit because Google is smart and they listen they always listen, but sometimes they listen and implement. And so the images have changed a little bit, but it's not very diverse. And so this chart, it's from NSF's work in 2017, but the numbers haven't changed a lot. And you see here that 49% of scientists and engineers working in science and engineering occupations are white men. And so this is also important around branding because when we think of a scientist, if 49% of scientists are white men, people may think that only white men can be scientists. And so this ties into why representation is important, why access is important, but creating your brand outside of just you allows someone else to know that someone like you is able to do what you're doing. And if they identify with you for whatever reason, whether it's we're both in the same high school, the same area, we have the same interests, we love the same music, then for them, there's a personal connection that someone who looks, thinks, acts, reads, smells like me is doing something that I'm interested in, which means that I may be able to do it too. And so this adds to the pipeline. And I'd be remiss if I did not bring that into the discussion today because that is very important. It's also important to show when people think of scientists and engineers, historically they thought of just really geeked out nerds with pocket protectors who were socially awkward and maybe drink, because I don't know about now because of budgets, but a few years ago, if you went to a scientific conference, there were a lot of drink tickets. And there are labs doing beer, happy hours and things like that. And so when I was going through my PhD at Meharry, one of the reasons why I stepped into STEM education is because I didn't see people that had my same interests at the lab. And I'll use this example. I am who I am, so take it at that. So my PI, because the example is going to be a little first world privilege. My PI was, he would wear the same shirt for the entire week and he would spill coffee on it that Monday, which means he had the same coffee stain starting Monday and went to Friday. I, on the other hand, wanted to come in when it was summertime. I wanted to wear my white linen pants and my cute shoes, and I wanted my nails done. And I wasn't a big makeup person, but I wanted to, and I didn't see that, right? I didn't see scientists who were interested in some of the fashion things that I wanted to do. Those things were looked at as being kind of trivial and petty. And so for me, it was like, well, I want a profession that allows me to do that. And so maybe being at the bench is not it. Now, I know that's not true. There's a time and a place. I learned that when I spilled hydrochloric acid on my white linen pants that I wore to lab. And my sister, who's also a PhD, was like, I told you not to do that. There's a reason why we wear jeans. But right, I wanted to be in a space where I would be able to be who I felt I was. And so had I seen someone who I thought was just like fly walking in a lab, that may have prompted me to want to stay in the lab more. And that's a very surface example, but we all know they go deeper than that. And feeling like you belong in this space is very important. And so I love talking about branding because to me, it creates opportunities for people that may not look like this majority chart to show other people that you can do this. So when it comes to branding, we are fortunate to be in the age where we can use social media. I don't know what they did before. And technically I was born before social media. Not technically, I was born before social media. I started using social media in college. I joined Facebook in 2005. I graduated college in 2006, but I have no clue how this was going to be done. How did you meet people before social media? But we can use social media to help with our branding. And if you're not big on social media, not a problem. There are other ways to do that. And it just also ties into your brand. I have here 3 of the top social media outlets. This also probably dates myself a little bit because there's no TikTok on here. My sister, who's older than me, loves TikTok though. She won't get an account, but she will watch all the videos all the time. And TikTok has rebranded themselves from just being a video platform to being an educational platform. You can do science experiments, you can learn how to do different things. But we have Facebook, which is usually tied to your personal image, right? And that's still a part of your brand, but it may not come into your STEM brand, your professional brand. Usually you're playing games, you're sharing videos. Facebook to me is more so for family. Like if you're like me and you're from the South, there are church members on Facebook. So you get the side that you would get if I was at church. We have Instagram, which is responsible for, it's usually video content. And it actually allows you to do both a professional and a personal image. And so I'm going to pivot and you're gonna have to tell me if you can see it. Do you see the screen or do you just see the PowerPoint?
Just the PowerPoint.
Okay, let's go ahead and switch. So now you should see Instagram, right? Okay, so this is my Instagram page. It's public, I have nothing to hide. And I told you I like to travel. So passport stamps. I love to cook, so there's a food one. I love fashion, right? I also do STEM outreach. And if you scroll through this page, and feel free to click on it if you want to, there's nothing inappropriate, you will see things that tie into that. These are things that I'm not ashamed of people seeing. These are things that speak to who I am and what I enjoy doing. And they all tie in those things. And Instagram is a place I feel like I can do that. I can post pictures of family, my dog, who that's all she does. I can also post technical speeches that I'm having, awards that I'm receiving. I can travel related things. And so that for me is a place where I can do both, right? But if you look at this, you get an idea of who I am. I probably need to change my bio because that was made when I was turning 30 and I have matured since then. But you get an idea of who I am, and that's a part of my brand. The next piece we have is Twitter. So Twitter, we're gonna switch back. Maybe I should just stop doing that. So Twitter is a place where you can technically do both. You can share professional and personal information. It comes with a description here. And if you notice here, this description is much different from Instagram. Instagram, I talk about where I'm from. I use a little clever saying. I talk about the fact that I enjoy whiskey. I'm from New Orleans, so I'm a product of my environment. I was a runner pre-pandemic. And just, it has more of a social spin. Here, I'm putting in more of my titles, my professional titles, my affiliations. And while I may use phrases that are describing certain things, here I'm quoting Zora Neale Hurston because I'm rereading one of her biographies. other things that are going on in the STEM world, it's not as personal as Instagram. And that's by choice, right? People are usually looking for events, and you can scroll through if you're bored one day. I'm very easy to find. And so you can see there's a difference between Twitter and Instagram just from a look perspective. And the next one we have is LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is purely for professional image. And I would say if you're not a social media person, just the fact that you are a STEM professional, I would encourage you to at least have a LinkedIn page. This goes from just branding to just professional access, right? If you're a candidate for a job, I'm gonna search for you on LinkedIn. I wanna see if you have those affiliations or the things that are missing from your resume. Do we know the same people? If you're a speaker, I wanna be able to look for that information about you. We can talk about like how to design your LinkedIn, or you can hit me up later and I can help you with that. Here, there's a much longer bio. It says nothing about running or being a socialite or traveling. It talks purely about my professional achievements. LinkedIn has, it's basically my resume in digital form. And so if someone is looking for me for a speaker, right, they can go without even having to contact me and see who I am, what I've accomplished, what my areas of expertise are. If you want to connect when it comes to a job, you can see other people I've connected with, you can see jobs I've had, you can tell if I know someone. And so LinkedIn to me is that professional tool. If you have questions about, like I said, how to set up your LinkedIn, we can definitely have that discussion. I'm more than willing to give tips, but this is where you want to put that bio and you want to showcase yourself as just the professional. The other three, if I had to pick one, it would be LinkedIn. The other three are just a preference if you have one. I have a lot of friends who are not into social media. They want to keep their life private. They don't want people to know about it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But again, as a professional, I encourage everyone to at least have a LinkedIn page. So when we talk about branding, I can't stress enough to bring your authentic self to your brand. Whatever you decide your brand is, be authentic in what you do. And you can notice the picture changed a little bit. I'm no longer in my computer and I'm sitting there looking like I'm writing, right? This is more of a social picture. But I want you to be your authentic self, be who you are. And I say that as sincerely as I can, because it's important. Because when you drill down to the heart of the matter, who you are is going to sustain you. And you don't want to be affiliated with something, an idea, a concept that doesn't truly represent who you are. So again, your professional brand is going to define who you are, what you do, your accomplishments, your job, your academic space, how people remember you, your unique skills, your personality, and your specialties. And we'll dive into this a little more because, as I mentioned, there is some work that I would like you all to attempt to do, no pressure. And so that leads us into creating your own brand. And the way you do that is you want to define your X factor. So this is like your it factor. You want to understand your why. You want to figure out what helps you stand out. And then you want to put it all together. So I'm not gonna, there's tons of questions and charts and think through things you can do. I have a snapshot of them that we're going to work through today. But it'll give you an idea of how to start the conversation around your who, what, and why. And if you think back to my titles, that's not all that I do or all that I am, but those are some of the key hats that I wear. And it also ties into my why, right? Why am I doing this? Why am I passionate about this? Why do I care about this? And it's also some of the things I think that help me stand out as an individual. I will also say, because this is a safe space, and I'm saying it's a safe space because I decided it was a safe space. If your why is money, don't be ashamed of that. If your why is power, don't be ashamed of that, right? We have negative connotations sometimes associated with these things, but if you are not true to yourself, you can't get down to your purpose, which ties into your brand, right? So if your motivating factor is I want to make a lot of money, we can work with that. That's helpful. That lets us know. If your motivating factor is I want to help people, that's also helpful. But pretending that your priority is helping people when your priority may be your check is not going to help you get to that purpose and that focus of what you want to do, as well as when you go out to be your authentic self, it's going to be difficult. So when we talk about defining your X factor, people with strong brands are clear about who they are. And I keep reinforcing that because at 37, it keeps growing and it keeps changing about who I am. And that's important for me. But in my 20s, I didn't quite have a grasp on that. I wasn't like wandering the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights, but I didn't have a clear grasp on who I was, right? And so you know and maximize your strengths. It's about knowing what you're good at. I am a good leader. I'm very organized and I'm a good leader. Do I have the desire to do the hands-on the ground day-to-day work? Not so much, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That means that I need to find a team that there's someone who is interested in doing that. There's someone who doesn't want to be the leader, who can help, and we can work and support each other. And so we're going to dive into giving you the opportunity to uncover and define your skills and strengths. So my transitions are not pretty, so we're gonna push through that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a document with you. I'm going to spoil it and give you the entire document. And in that document, we're gonna work through the pages. And if you're like me, you may do a page before we get to it. I'm okay with that. Let's see. Okay, it should show up. So it should say STEM professional branding. And in that document, the first slide, we're going to do part 1. And so there's some questions. We're going to take about 7 minutes. I'm doing good on time. Yay for me. We're going to take 7 minutes and get you to work through those questions. I did make it a Google Sheet because I didn't want people to share their responses. Don't feel pressure to complete the entire thing. You can take this with you, but work through, does everyone who wants access, do you have access to the document? Okay, so work through those questions. What are your strengths and others acknowledging you? See if you can get to the deeper introspection part where you talk about what strengths and skills came up over and over again, motivating skills. And then at 1, I said 7 minutes. Let's try 1:30. This is gonna kill my OCD. 1:37. Let's try 5 minutes. We will come back together. It's not a Google Sheet, it's a Word document. I don't know how to fix that. It's in a Google Drive, but it's a Word document. Maybe I could do this. Please. Let's do that. So this is the document, and we're gonna go through, you're gonna take a few minutes and try to get through part 1. So in about 2 more minutes, we will come back together. Okay, I may need to add some music. Normally I do this in person, but some music in the next. Does anyone want to share? That's probably the theme for the hour. Their top 5 strengths. It's okay if you don't. I don't see anybody coming up here. Okay. So you want to? Okay.
Oh,
go ahead.
all right. That's a little late.
No.
The mute button. So I don't have 5. Well, okay. So I'm organized and logical. I like to help people, like support people in whatever way I can. I'm perseverant or resilient. Those might be a little 2 separate things, but kind of the same thing. And then one that people say I have, but I'm still, trying to accept it, is leadership.
If you don't stand in your leadership and own that, I mean, it could be. I lead a team. It can try you. Working with people is definitely a skill, and leading people is a skill. Thank you. Excellent. So those strengths are going to come into play later on. We're building on something here, but keep your strengths in mind. Keep the thoughts you felt, the feelings you felt, especially the feelings about this exercise. If you were hesitant to put something down, if you couldn't think of a strength, we want to, my earpiece is annoying me because my ears are small and it won't stay in, but think about the feeling you felt with those strengths, because a lot of times with branding, as I mentioned, we're hesitant to own some of the words that describe us and talk about what we're doing. It's crazy because as scientists, we are taught to talk about our research, but we're not taught to talk about ourselves doing the research and who we are and who the research has evolved us into. And so this gets into that. Your research is great, right? But there are transferable skills from your time as an academic that are just as important to helping you become the person that you want to be throughout life. And so think about that feeling, because a lot of times, like I said, it's hesitation. And hopefully as time goes on, you will push past the hesitation and own those thoughts. Now, I've also not been confused with someone who is not confident. So it is very easy for me to list off what I think are strengths and strong points. And it may be a little too easy, but take some of that and use it and I probably have too much, but take some of that from me and use it to help you write down your descriptions. So the next step is to understand your why, right? Why are you doing this? And understanding your why is pivotal to designing your career plan that's going to connect you with your values, your passion, and your purpose. So this kind of alignment with your values and your and integrating your passion into what you do, what you're excited about, can really help you in that to become an unstoppable person. So we're going to focus on your values, your passion, and clarify your purpose. And this will help you kind of develop your own roadmap. In my introduction, I mentioned that my position, my purpose, and my passion align. I know that that's very unique, and a lot of people don't do that. My passion around STEM equity and giving back to the community and helping people make an informed decision about going into STEM is a passion of mine. My current positions as an adjunct professor, as a director of engineering education, as an owner of my own consulting business allows me to do that. And I feel my purpose in life to advocate and be a voice and be a representative of what a scientist can look like for others all allows me to do that. And so I'm very fortunate that I was able to figure that out, but I didn't know that coming. I wasn't born understanding that. I actually figured it out a few years ago being 3 to 4. So, and as I mentioned, I am 37. So now we're going to do the next part of the sheet. For those that had trouble accessing it, I'm going to pivot back to the sheet. There we go. We're going to the next part. So understanding your why. I'm going to say 7 minutes. Let's cut that to actually 5 minutes because I talked too long in the beginning. So at 1:46, if you don't get through the entire thing, that's fine. This part is a little longer. And again, we'll touch on some of the things that are discussed here. And I guess it doesn't help me sharing the sheet because it's multiple pages. I'll do this here for like 2 minutes and then I'll scroll up in 2 minutes.
I have a question.
Go for it.
What are examples of values?
Oh, I'm supposed to show you the sheet. What do I want to do? Stop this. Go here. Let me give you. So because it's taking me longer, I'm just going to do the first part. Yeah, there we go. Let's see. All right, let's do it. So just do the first part and here we go. Can you all see that? Is it too fuzzy?
We can see it.
Okay. If you think of better terms, feel free to use them. This is just a list. Okay, so I'm gonna jump back in here. And if there's an evaluation for this workshop and you say that there was not enough time, I will totally own that and I will be responsible for that. So the next, so you probably only got through like the values part, which is totally fine. So in doing that, I want to give you an example of how this begins to come together. These are two examples, right? So we talk about skills and strengths. If one of them is relationship building and collaboration, and some of your values are respect, excellence, discipline, caring for others. Let's say your passion is animals. My goddaughter loves animals and she's currently struggling with what she wants to do with her life because she wants to be a vet, but she doesn't want to be a vet. So your ideal first job out of school will be working in healthcare organization or developing therapies that maybe help people. Even though you have a passion for animals, you may not necessarily want to work with animals. And a purpose could be to lead a national initiative that influences the provisions of alternate healthcare services to underserved and disadvantaged people. And then you have potential organizations that you want to work for, as well as potential roles. This helps you kind of craft out, again, using your values, your passion, and your purpose to understand where you see yourself or the spaces you potentially see yourself in, which helps you when you're trying to brand yourself as a diversity, equity, inclusion expert, a geneticist, an advocate. All of these titles that we use, going through this helps you kind of put it together. So the third part is standing out, right? Personal branding is about standing out while being yourself. And I like to say your best self, whoever that is. Your need to step up, you have to step up in order to stand out. You can't stand out from the background. And there's a space for introverts and extroverts in standing out. I don't have time, obviously, to go through that, but we can talk about that at a different time. But there is space for either one of those. And if you're an introvert with slightly extrovert tendencies and vice versa, there are also spaces for that. But it's about how you tell your story. When we first started, we talked about introductions. If you joined early, you heard me kind of talking about just sharing random information. And usually that leads to connections and people, oh, I've done that, or I'm from there, or I know this person. And that also helps with your brand as well as your network. So telling your story goes beyond what you say. What you do also says a lot about your story as well. And we have this concept of first impressions. First impressions are important, but it's more important, again, to be yourself in those impressions. And so there's this theory around what professionalism is, what you should do, what you should look like. I don't jump into those in my workshop. I do talk about sometimes perception. So if you showed up to a job interview with a sequence top on that was see-through and a short skirt, I'm not telling you not to do that. I'm just going to tell you the perception you may have. And if you can handle the consequences of that perception, I'm all for you doing what you want to do, right? This also ties into who we are. And I like to take this moment again to remind people that the days of showing up in super conservative attire, like they did in the 50s, have long gone, right? There's a certain image and look for certain settings, but not to the extent that it causes you to question who you are or what you are in a space. And I like to reinforce that because it's important. A lot of times the professional norms may go against just who we are naturally. So I'll give you an example. When I was in school in 2006, and I have 10 minutes, I'm conscious of that. In 2006, I've had natural hair since 1998. When I got to college, I was told that I should straighten my hair or I should pull it back in a bun so that it's not as, the word that was used is intimidating. And I took pause on that, right? This is my hair. This is how my hair grows. Why do I have to alter it to make someone else feel comfortable? And so that has kind of been one of the points for me of working in this space as well. Choosing to show it with my hair the way that it grows is important for me. And I love to do different things with my hair. You may see me next week. If you go through my social media, I'm different people every week, right? Because my hair changes, right? But I choose to show up intentionally because I was taught at a young age that it wasn't appropriate, and I disagree with that. one of the good things about science is that our version of professionalism can change. So it's nothing like having somebody with red hair and tattoos and a nose ring. Do you want to be in my lab, right? How cool is that? And I love that about our space because we have the opportunity to do that. I think other sectors are slowly embracing that because we show up with our minds. And that is usually much more valuable than what I have on or how I look like. And people are also more willing to work with you. You know, you can't go to a professional conference in a t-shirt that's 5 days old and some swim trunks, but people are more willing to work with you in our profession to adjust that as opposed to just completely counting you out. So the next part, we're not gonna take 5 minutes, so I understand we'll be dinged for that, is about standing out. So look at part 3, step 1, and think about how comfortable you are with some of these areas, how consistent you are and what you do. And we'll do this for about 3 minutes. So at 1:55, we'll stop and I'll just do a quick wrap up and hopefully stay on time so that if they have another workshop, you guys will come back and not fear someone wasting your time. Okay, so you want to take these markers in terms of the step 1 about how comfortable you are and look for areas of improvement. And when you look for areas of improvement, you also want to think about what the improved outcome would be, what would be a good outcome, and try to narrow down 3 practice opportunities where you can implement that improvement. So for example, if you felt that, y'all need to tired of me saying be yourself, but be yourself in all situations. If you don't feel like you're very comfortable with that, then it could actually be understanding what parts you may be uncomfortable and showing up intentionally in spaces with that, and trying out in different spaces. It could be in a professional space, a personal space. I'm not advocating for you to go up to a stranger, but stepping into that area. So the last piece, and I won't take the whole 5 minutes in case there's something else that needs to be officially said, is putting it all together. So you want to take what you kind of learned about yourself and put it together in this bio. And this bio is a tool that you can use to communicate your unique promise to people who are making decisions about you. My bio that I gave was probably way too long. Not probably, it was way too long. And there is a more appropriate one that I could have given. But it also enhances your online brand. So you can use it for social media profiles such as LinkedIn, if your company is highlighting you, if you do a blog. And if you, in crafting your branded bio, it allows you to convey your unique values that gets others to want to know you better. I have a very quick example. I know that we're all able to read, but I'm going to read it for you just so we can kind of digest it. And if I need to share these slides, I can. So if you think about the before example, Jamie Smith is majoring in marketing at Clark Atlanta University. She's also taken several art-related courses and is interested in a career in marketing and advertising. She completed an internship at Johnson Creative, where she worked on social media campaigns for healthcare clients. In high school, she was the class president and was active in organizing art programs. It got all the points across, but it was kind of blah, right? I don't feel any enthusiasm or excitement. And so once going through a workshop, you're able to identify your skills, your values, your passion, and special causes or roles. And so some keywords for her included project management, creativity, relationships, collaboration, curiosity, teamwork, creative writing, the creative side of marketing, project leadership. So you want to incorporate those active words into the bio to get people excited, right? So we want to be excited. You should be excited so others can be excited. So majoring in marketing at Clark Atlanta University, Jamie Smith is a marketing enthusiast and an accomplished artist and writer. In addition to taking every marketing course offered, which it's not, may not be true, it's an over-exaggeration, but it gets the point across. She completed 6 courses in the arts over the past 3 years. After her second year at the university, she interned at Johnson Creative Agency, where she applied her creative and project management expertise. You're telling me what you're good at. You're letting me know what you do to build a social media campaign, and then you're showing me how you did it for healthcare clients. In high school, Jamie was the class president. This is a leadership skill. Leadership was one of her skills. She used her collaboration and relationship building skills and desire to make a difference to join forces with other local high school students. This is your passion, your cause. To organize common local arts programs. A true adventurer and avid athlete, Jamie spends her winter breaks perfecting her snowboarding technique. That last sentence is probably not completely necessary, but it also shows that you're well-rounded, that you are a person who does other things outside of lab. So if you take nothing else from this, because I have 1 minute left, understand the world needs you, not another someone else. And so when you do that, you want to create your own unique brand because we have enough of everybody else's. I want to thank you guys for joining me. Yes, 1 more minute. As you can tell, my OCD did not want me to go over time. So I'm going to turn it back over to the host. And if anyone wants to reach out, feel free to email me if you have follow-up questions, if you have comments, if you have thoughts, good or bad, feel free to share them with me and let me know. So I'm going to turn it over to the host.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley. Virtual round of applause for Ashley. Great. So the one final announcement I just want to make, thank you again for joining us at this workshop today as part of our professional development week with NSPN. We do have a happy hour on Friday that's going to be a professional development and jobs theme. So I'm just going to really quickly drop the link to register for that in the chat. That will be another great opportunity to chat more about this workshop and many of the other topics that we're talking about with professional development. So I encourage all of you to join us for that happy hour. Other than that, like Ashley said, please feel free to reach out to her or reach out to anybody at NSPN if you need help getting in touch with her. And we would love for you to continue thinking about these things and these sorts of conversations about professional development and personal branding far beyond this workshop. So thank you again, everyone, and thank you, Ashley, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.